I'd like to start by saying what a pleasure it is to be here at FutureStack. It's great to be invited and give this talk again. Slightly tweaked, but mostly the same. So yeah, my name's Paul Kiddie, and I'm a developer on the Tango team at Trainline. And so I'll be talking about how we kind of started off with New Relic within the organization, and we've kind of moved it on, and how it's kind of grown with us as well. And basically how we're using it to improve customer happiness, get some of the insights there, and then hone in on the things that matter. So if you want to get me, I'm on Twitter at pkiddie with an IE. And then we've got the Trainline Engineering Twitter account at ttl_engineering. Cool. I should have clicked play. All right, cool. So what do? We do this. So we sell tickets, sell UK rail tickets. We're the top independent ticket retailer in the UK. So essentially, we're providing a really easy way to get a paper ticket, or more increasingly, a mobile ticket. So if the infrastructure's there, then we take advantage of that as well and provide that option to our customers. In addition to that, we provide a whole bunch of live running information, and then push messaging and delay alerts and things like that, just to help our customers before, during, and after their journey, just to make it a bit of an easier overall experience. Because the train network in UK can be a bit hairy sometimes. So our development teams, it's a bit difficult to make out there, but they're focused on several core business areas. So we offer our booking engine white label, essentially, to UK train companies. We've got a mobile apps team that look after the iOS and Android apps. And we provide booking engines and then reporting then for small business and travel management companies. And then underpinning all this is a whole bunch of platform services that power Trainline, so things like journey planning, fulfillment, and that kind of thing. I work on the consumer website as part of the Tango team. So just to give you an idea of how big our infrastructure is, here are some vitals. So we've got 40 environments. A lot of them are test environments, and this totals around 1,000 servers. Then we've got about 100 independently deployable products, applications and services. So our stack is primarily .NET on Windows, and we've been using the New Relic .NET agent and the server monitor for Windows extensively. So with that kind of size estate, we love automation, just helps with testability and then the repeatability. Some of this we're moving a lot of our infrastructure to AWS. So in the meantime, we've actually got double the size of the infrastructure, which is it's an interesting transition point at the moment. So before New Relic, it was a bit of a dark place. So unless there was a production incident, most often customers would spot issues with the website or a less than successful platform release. So we used to do these massive 6-weekly platform releases where we changed the whole state of the system, and often there would be production issues based from that. You'd often find that the logs are just left on disk, and they just don't provide any value to really business as usual kind of overall improvement. So it's all just a bit reactive. The lead time for any analysis of a production incident was hours or days after the event, usually a manual process involving log shipping, and just a bit out of context, so it's very difficult and for the developers to reproduce and investigate. So really, the main driver for introducing New Relic was the continuous monitoring that it offers. So we took a product, which is the main consumer website at www.trainline.com, and we started by re-engineering its delivery. So we ripped it out of that platform release, the 6-week one, and built a continuous delivery pipeline with blue-green deployments, and essentially the ability to then rapidly deploy, switch to a new product version with zero downtime. So the challenge then was how do we monitor these releases, get quick feedback in order to spot problems before our customers do. So that, and I think the fact that we could hit the ground running with New Relic with zero capital outlay, just install the free agent, install the free server monitor was fantastic, and we actually managed to get New Relic installed in all our test environments essentially within an hour of just downloading the software. So that was fantastic. So what we did, as well as automating the pipelines and the delivery of the application, is to automate our infrastructure for the main website. So the .NET agent and the server monitor are baked in to our application servers, the build of the application servers. So for simplicity and just to get it, so we didn't have to go through security and things like that, we deployed it with high security. Just to make it easier and start getting some of that value from New Relic. And yeah, we've been reaping the benefits ever since. So we take full advantage of all the alerting that we get through from the JavaScript and application areas, which allows us to roll back with a quick toggle between the slices, or roll forward if we deem it as not being that a customer-facing issue that we can deal with internally. The deployment markers are great, because we get the vertical lines are most of New Relic's graphs, so we can compare before and after. And the funnels, which something like this, so which allows us to capture our step conversion, see where it's falling, and then our product owner can then look at that and determine, well, which part of the booking flow should we optimize? Should we start reducing the number of steps? That kind of thing. So this is all done through an insights query. You might be able to make out, it's a bit small, the text, but we're actually using our own server-side provided session identifier. So we pass it in as a custom attribute, and that's just to get around the fact that in certain devices, iOS devices, they tend to block cookies, and then you get a new session ID per page view. So we pass it in as a custom attribute, and that allows us to track the entire user journey. So yeah, so we've got a bunch of metrics, and we've started using these as key performance indicators for the team. So our lead performance engineer has actually given us a performance budget, and one of the criteria is a target error rate that we that we should achieve, and then every quarter that becomes more aggressive. As a team, then we report on these error rates. We have a weekly health check, and the New Relic data that we get takes center stage here. We look at the historical application error rates, and we've used the New Relic API to take advantage of that. Essentially, that gives us the top 3 aggregated errors that we then put into our backlog, and then we deal as based on priorities. Then the great thing is that there's no longer any waste or manual process to ship and aggregate the exception information. That's just all done for us with New Relic. So this is a kind of aggregated, a historical view of where we were before, although if you took it back a little bit, we're actually running about 0.5% error rate. We're now under 0.05%, so that's a fantastic improvement, and we've noticed that in terms of the overall, in terms of the conversion rates as well, as customers aren't experiencing so many errors. So that was great. I think that was a successful experiment within the Tango team, but then we wanted to take it further. So Trainline, the other clusters, the other teams, they wanted to start taking advantage of New Relic. So the next step was to kind of roll it out across the entire estate, so that other teams could benefit from it. So we're Windows.NET. We use Chocolatey for package management. So the base image scripts install New Relic via Chocolatey. And then we do have, unfortunately, some creaky legacy boxes, and we're using Microsoft System Center to manage the install on those boxes, though those are kind of going away with the movement to AWS, where everything is being automated. And then at application deployment time, we actually poke in custom application names for each of the applications that we deploy, so we don't get all our applications reporting in as my application. And then you can just, we can tweak that in the New Relic UI. So yeah, that's just, it's fantastic for the teams. They're getting that, the application, the server monitoring without even thinking about it. And they can just look at, consult New Relic. So as I mentioned earlier, we're using custom attributes, and custom attributes require us to come out of high security mode. But we're in production at that stage with New Relic, so we wanted to do it in a way that we can minimize the monitoring outage as well. But we still wanted the assurances that high security offered, So working with New Relic and the support teams, came up with a kind of solution that essentially we do what high security mode does, but within the New Relic config itself. So there's a bunch of, you can specify attribute excludes for things like request parameters that we don't want to pass to New Relic. And we bake that config into the Chocolatey package, and then that gets deployed out to all our servers. So just an interesting observation was that running the .NET agents, they don't verify during runtime high security mode, so it allowed us to decouple New Relic switching off high security, and then all our configs being changed. So that was a good thing actually, just to minimize the monitoring downtime. So with custom attributes, we've got a whole bunch of business metrics that we can start putting into New Relic, and we've augmented all the existing events, the page views and transactions, with all this extra information. So we're using the New Relic Agent API, just allows us to be a much tighter integration, just based on writing some NRQL queries. So a good example of this is another one of our team called Phoenix. They look after payments and fulfillment, is around their real-time payments dashboard. So that kind of looks something like this. And the great thing about this is that we're getting instantaneous revenue figures that we can then facet by things that would otherwise be, well, we have to get that information from somewhere that might take days. So we can facet by payment type, for example, and just query this breadth of data that we didn't have before. The great thing, the other thing about this was that we could use this dashboard to kind of predict the effect on payment outages. So you compare this week versus last week and things like that. So it was again good to promote that. So we're using it across all teams are using New Relic for very different purposes. We have monitoring and production support, and they're very interested in what's the health of the system. I want to see this green lights everywhere. So they've created insights dashboards reporting page by page performance. The product owners are then using funnels to determine where development spend should go. We as developers get feedback on new features. And then management gets a holistic view of how everything is all integrating and using the map feature extensively as well. And then finally, what's next? So we're kind of experimenting with custom attributes to see where what kind of value we can get out of that. Development teams are moving to be more polyglot, in the web team, as I said, we're running Node.js and React web apps in production. And it kind of also helps in that way that New Relic is also polyglot. So we're just taking full advantage of the Node.js New Relic agent, so that's fab. We're moving a load of our products to AWS at the moment. Brings benefits, total cost of ownership and things like that, but there are challenges around monitoring, and we're hoping that New Relic can help with our growing inventory of EC2 instances. So with that, I'd like to say thank you for listening. Yeah, sure.
So just to let you know, so most of the questions we'll take out in the Hacker Lounge, but we can take one, so you're the lucky person. And they want us to do it on the mic.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so my question is around your blue-green deployments.
Yeah.
I'm actually in a .NET environment as well.
Sure.
And I'd like to know what you're doing there, if you could just give us a little detail on that.
Yeah.
Also, how you're using, just in your continuous integration build in the dev area, how you're using New Relic in that area as well.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of that the second question, we've got New Relic deployed across all our environments, because especially with the integration with custom attributes, we need to be able to test that actually works.
That's another question, by the way. How many custom attributes are you using at the moment?
A handful at the moment, but it's growing. It's about 20 custom attributes. And then in terms of the blue-green deployments, we essentially we have separate banks of infrastructure essentially for our blue and green infrastructure, and essentially we just use the load balancer to switch between.
Okay. Are you using any tools like, for instance, we're using Octopus Deploy now. Have you guys looked into using that, or?
We have. We're using TeamCity to drive a lot of the pipelines, and we have some of our own internal tools that help us with that. The delivery, last mile delivery onto the boxes themselves. So.
And what are you using for source control? Are you using TFS or are you using TeamCity?
No, we're using Git. Yeah, GitHub. So we've got our own.
Git.
Yeah. So we've got our own hosted GitHub instance.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem.